All right, problem 3-27 says for the function h of x equals negative 3x squared minus 11x plus 4, find the value of h of x for each value of x given below. All right, this one shouldn't be too bad. So we're going to deal with this function here, h of x equals negative 3x squared minus 11x plus 4. Key thing here is to make sure that you're keeping track of whether it's an input or an output here. So letter A, we are going to swap out our x with a 0. So we're going to say our function h of 0 is going to equal negative 3 times 0 squared. And then we're going to subtract 11 times 0. And then we're going to add 4. Choose our order of operations to simplify this down. 0 squared is going to be 0 times negative 3 is 0. Then we have minus 11 times 0 is still 0. And then plus 4. So 0 minus 0 is 0, plus 4 is going to be 4. So we know that when we put in 0 as our input, our output should be 4. This is the point 0, 4, which basically is your y-intercept, right? If you were to graph this, this is your y-intercept. All right, let's look at letter B when we've got h of 2. Let's do the same thing here. We're going to say h of 2. And it's important you put the 2 in here because the answer is only going to be what it is when 2 is in there. Just like over here, when we put in 0, the answer was 4. But we have to know what we put in to get the 4 out. So the same thing happens here. We're going to say negative 3 times 2 squared minus 11 times 2. And then plus 4. So 2 squared is 4, so we actually have negative 3 times 4 minus 11 times 2 plus 4. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. Negative 11 times 2 is negative 22. And then we have plus 4 at the end. Negative 12 minus 22 is negative 34. Plus 4 should give us negative 30. So we know that h of 2 equals negative 30. Or in other words, when we put in 2 into the function, we get the output negative 30. So the ordered pair would look like that. Let's look at C. Now we've got a negative number. You have to make sure you're careful, especially if you're going to put it in the calculator when you have a negative number. We're going to do h of negative 1 equals negative 3 times negative 1 squared minus 11 times negative 1 plus 4. Negative 1 squared is like negative 1 times negative 1, which gives us 1. So we should have negative 3 times 1 minus 11 times negative 1 plus 4. Negative 3 times 1 gives us that negative 3. Negative 11 times negative 1, or 11 times negative 1 would be negative 11, but when you take it away, that turns it into plus. So we have negative 3 plus 11 plus 4. So negative 3 plus 11 is 8, and 8 plus 4 here is going to give us 12. So we take that here. Our function h of negative 1 equals 12. That's like the point negative 1, comma, 12. And we'll check all these here in a moment. You know, it's important to check them, but just taking them and plugging them in here first and seeing what we get out. So the first one, the last one, D, we have h of 1/2. So if you're more comfortable with decimals, I guess you could put in 0.5 instead. I'm going to just leave it as a fraction because I like fractions. We have negative 3 times 1/2 squared minus 11 times 1/2 plus 4. So 1/2 times 1/2 is going to give us 1/4. So we have -3 times 1/4. We have a -11 times 1/2, which would be equal to -11/2. And then plus 4. -3 times 1/4 would give us -3/4. Now when I subtract 11/2, I have to have a common denominator. So if we multiply the top and the bottom each by 2, that's really like saying -22/4. And since we're converting all these two to fourths, we could also do that with 4. What divided by, or what do we divide 4 by to get 4? That would be 16. So 4 is the same thing as 16/4. So -3 minus 22 is going to give us -25/4 plus 16/4 give us then, looking at -9/4. Or for those decimal people, that's like -2.25. So when we plug in 1/2, or if you put it as 0.5, your output should have been -2.25 or -9/4. I'm going to put the -9/4 in there because I don't want a fraction for one and a decimal for the other. So that would be our answer for D. Let's look real quick here then. It says E, for what values of x does h of x equal 0? So let's just scroll down, give ourselves a little bit more room. Now we're finding the x-intercepts. Add a little space here. All right, so let's just change the color here so we know where we're at. This is letter E. We're going to be looking at when we have h of x equals 0. Well, we already know that h of x equals, what was it, -3x squared minus 11x plus 4. And if we really look at it here, h of x equals 0 and h of x equals -3x squared minus 11x plus 4. Well, we know that if both of these equal the same things, then these two things must be equal. This is when we take this equation, we set it equal to 0, and we solve it for x. Let's do that. So we've got -3x squared minus 11x plus 4, and we're setting that equal to 0. So we want to factor here. A couple ways we could go about doing that. You know, you could do this, or if we wanted to, we could actually multiply everything times a negative and flip our signs around here, and you'd see that we would have 3x squared plus 11x minus 4 equals 0 too. You can solve either one of these. These are going to give you the same answer. Okay, this one here and this one here will give you the same answer. So if you're more comfortable factoring this one, then just add your 3x squared, add 11x, and subtract 4 to the other side, or multiply both sides by a negative. If I'm going to factor this one, then, you know, I can do it that way. Whichever way you want to do it. I'll take it here. I know some of us struggle with factoring, so I'll do the box since I know a lot of you are comfortable with the box and the diamond. So we'll take it here. Set up that generic rectangle. And don't judge. I can't write straight with this device. I'm trying. So we'll put our first one in here. We've got -3x squared. Up here we've got 4. When we multiply these, we get -12x squared. Put our -11x in the bottom. And then we're going to look for values that multiply to give us negative 12, but then when we add them, we get negative 11. So that's an easy one. We have negative 12x and positive x. So that's what we're going to throw in up here. We have negative 12x, and we have positive 1x. So what can we take out of here? Well, looks like our common factors we would have here would be, I could pull out a negative 3x. Negative 3x times x gives me negative 3x squared, and negative 3x times positive 4 gives me negative 12x. X times positive 1 here will give me positive 1, and then I see 1 times 4 gives me 4. So I've factored that. We now have, and I'll move this down here, we now have x plus 4 times negative 3x plus 1. It's still part of this equation, and it drives me crazy when people just lose track of the fact that it equals 0. Okay, so if you're showing your work, I probably should have moved this somewhere else, but just keep your equation balanced and just keep moving along with it. Now we can split this into x plus 4 equals 0, and negative 3x plus 1 equals 0. When we solve those, we'll get x equals negative 4. And this one, we'll subtract our 1 and divide by negative 3. We'll get x equals 1/3. So those would be our two answers. We would have the point negative 4, 0, and the point 1/3, 0.